Bonjour! Today, we're going to talk about something extremely vital to our daily task. It is one of the most essential communication tools that we use regularly. I'm talking about our corporate email. Sure, we have all been using our personal email accounts for a very long time, and you may already know how to work your way around it. It's a safe bet that in your previous jobs, you've used other email applications like Microsoft Outlook, and you have probably developed your own method of organizing your business email. But managing our corporate email at ANGSA requires subscribing to company standards because they are designed to make our communication in the office more efficient. The first thing we need to do before we start our day at work is to check your dashboard page on the ANGSA desktop upon logging in. This is going to give you a quick glance of the tasks you need to fulfill for the next 5 days. You should also check the recent activities of the different workspaces that you are a part of. This way, you're always in the loop by catching up on the latest news. You will know more about task setting when you watch the ANGSA desktop training video as part of the new employees orientation. After you have checked your task on ANGSA desktop, then you can set your schedule using your Gmail calendar. This will give you an idea on how your day is going to look like. Try accessing the calendars of your teammates as well. So if you need to set a meeting with them, then you'll know when their most convenient time is. This is consistent to the collaborative aspect of our corporate culture. Let's get started, shall we? At this point, we are going to discuss 4 important rules in email management. First rule, inbox management. I'm sure that you have seen an inbox flooded with hundreds or even thousands of unread email messages. While that may be acceptable for personal email, it should not be the case for a company email. Messages that arrive at our inbox should be sorted out regularly to avoid a huge pile. We should make sure that there's no email sitting at our inbox at the end of the day. The incoming messages should be properly organized into labels, so we could attend to them based on the level of priority. This leads us to rule number 2. Second rule, filters and labels management. So where do the messages in our inbox go? They will each be given an appropriate label. These labels are like tags or IDs that we apply to our email messages so they will be properly classified. Labels can also be applied automatically through the filters that we are going to create. Filters instantly apply labels to incoming emails based on the parameters that we set. For example, emails coming from the authors will be directly labeled as authors. Emails that contain subjects with the words Bon Appetit Diet will have the Bon Appetit Diet program label. These messages will be funneled accordingly, so it's easier for us to determine the email's classification. We should create labels that fall under these categories: customer, operations, team, and administrative, with corresponding sublabels for further organization. This is what we call the contact classification, which is largely determined by our job description. 2 people who work in different departments will have a different kata, but 2 people on the same team are likely to have the same. For us to fully understand how kata works, this will be discussed in detail shortly. Third rule, time, task, and agenda management. Email management precedes email answering. The good thing about email management is that we don't necessarily have to immediately reply to every single email that we read. The filters and labels that we have set up will help us decide whether the email urgently requires a response. So which email should be answered first? You see, it really depends on your position and how you manage your priorities. It is up to you to decide which emails are important and which ones can wait. To help you address this, we will talk about the Getting Things Done methodology later on. Rule number 4, email answering. The subject or title of an email is very important because it already shows if the email is worth reading or not. Emails should be treated as discussions. If you're sending an email about a meeting this afternoon, would you simply write meeting for your title? It would be more engaging if you use meeting at 4 p.m. on ANGSA's new coaching programs. The reader can easily get the gist of your email, and the level of its importance will be judged accordingly. For internal communication, never send negative email. The tone of one's voice can't be heard if it's written communication, which might result in more misunderstanding. These sensitive topics are better resolved through face-to-face interaction, so it's recommended to have a meeting instead. For external communications, don't forget to loop in 2 to 3 key persons in the team to exhibit our core values. After discussing the 4 rules of email management, let me add a couple of other reminders for good measure. First, when you're sending an attachment to your email, the preferred size should not exceed 2 MB. Otherwise, it might clog up our email server if we make it a habit to send huge file attachments. If you really have to send a large file to a colleague, it is best to use other file sharing tools online, such as a shared folder on Angsa Desktop or Dropbox. One more important thing. For security purposes, never give out your passwords, and don't save your email passwords on your browser. Remember that there's a lot of security threats online that can pry into confidential email exchanges, so we can never be too careful. These are very simple ways to protect our business email. Let's check out our CEO's email management strategy. If Fabrice, the busiest man in the company, can manage 350 to 450 emails per day, then so can we. I doubt if we even get half of that number every day, so there's no excuse for us not to manage our inbox properly. This enormous number of emails comes from 2 major email categories: external and internal communication. Let's have a look at the screen capture of Fabrice's inbox for external communication from his email account, fabricebuta@ujudewi.com. As you can see, the number of email messages in his inbox is 0. So where did the hundreds of messages per day go? All of his messages are organized and classified in the labels on the left pane. On the average, of the 300 external communication emails he receives every day, 200 are market newsletters, 50 are alerts from social media such as Facebook and LinkedIn, while 50 are from Angsa's business partners. He doesn't have to worry about spam or unsolicited emails that we hate receiving, because Google has a very powerful spam detector that automatically recognizes unwanted emails. How come that these newsletters and social media alerts never pass the inbox? It's because he created filters that would redirect them to the Angsa labels. He checks them once or twice a month. Imagine how much time will be wasted if Fabrice has to read all 300 emails every day. That's why he has set levels of priorities in his external communication to guide him on which email should be answered first. Highest level of priority goes to our authors, like emails from Cohen, Montignac, and Garay. Next would be the key partners for distribution, followed by the advisors and agencies. Other partners and opportunities would go next, and newsletters and alerts have the least level of priority. Remember, this is the CEO's levels of priority. Yours may not look like this because you set your own. Answering the emails will be based on the priorities that Fabrice set. Top priority emails from our community of authors should be replied to within 24 hours, which is consistent with the core value of spreading happiness throughout the communities. Priorities 2 and 3, which include our partners' ecosystem, agencies, and advisors, should be replied to within the week or month. On the other hand, priorities 4 and 5 will be answered within a month or a year. No email will be missed out as long as they are properly identified and labeled. Most emails would require an action or resolution, and Fabrice has further categorized these action items into 3. Action 1 should be acted upon this week, Action 2 this month, and Action 3 this year. Using these action lists is called the Getting Things Done methodology. There's no way to create a filter for prioritizing action until you've read the email itself. So segregating these emails should be done manually, of course. Another important label is a reference label. This is where Fabrice stores emails that contain important information that he needs to access every so often. No action is required for these emails. An example of an email that you'll find in the reference label would be an email that has account credentials or login details for a particular website. Thereafter, you need to be familiar with the kata labels, and at this juncture, as promised, we will have a thorough discussion about it so you'll be properly guided on how to apply this method. As you might still recall, kata is an acronym that stands for Customer, Operations, Team, and Administrative. It is an arbitrary classification of documents used by Angsa employees for all our communication, like workspaces on Angsa Desktop and our corporate email. You might ask yourself, can't I just use my own style of email organization? First of all, we need to have a standard way of categorizing our workplace communication exchanges. The kata framework provides a simple, easy, and effective way for us to sort discussions and identify their levels of importance. Let's start off with C, which stands for Customer. Email messages coming from the people whom we're providing service to should be labeled as customer. These people are your own clients. Let me cite a few examples. The accounting department provides payroll service to the ANGSA employee community. Then obviously, each employee is a customer of accounting. The design team provides banners and mailers to the marketing team, who is one of their customers. The customer service team deals with the end users of ANGSA's products, so they are their customers. It's as simple as that. Now let's move on to O, which stands for operations. Emails that revolve around our daily tasks should be labeled as operations. This involves all ongoing projects relevant to your job description or daily routine. In my case, as a corporate trainer, email messages concerning training sessions, training content development, and employee community management will all have labels under operations. So check your job description for the appropriate organization of your operations label based on your main goals and responsibilities. The third one is T, which stands for team. Well, you've guessed it right. Emails from our team members should be labeled as team. As part of the same team, you serve the same overall purpose. So closely monitor their incoming messages through this label to make sure that you are on the same page. Minutes of the team meetings should have this label, as well as discussions of the job descriptions of your teammates. Now we reach A, which stands for administrative. Emails related to administrative tasks, like reporting or office announcements, should be labeled administrative. Bear in mind that a single email may have multiple labels, depending on its nature. For instance, an email message may have the customer, operations, and action 1 labels all at the same time, since the email fits the description for all the labels mentioned. For a detailed discussion on the Kata system, don't hesitate to consult the training team, your managers, or watch our training video on workspace management. Now we'll have a walkthrough on how to create these labels and filters using Gmail. So this is the user interface of our Gmail account. And if you have used Gmail before, this is a familiar sight to you. And like what we have discussed in the training video, I have already set my action labels, my reference labels, and the contact classification. Well, I'm just going to collapse this one so it's easier for you to see. Okay, the contact classification. Okay, now how do we create a label? So on the upper right part of the screen, hit Options, go to Mail Settings, go to the second tab, which is Labels, and just hit Create New Label. So I'm just going to type in Test1, and then hit Create. Now you can see the newly created label named Test1, and across that label you'll find a small box here, and when you click that one you will see the different options. You can also put a color on that label if you want to. Now hit Sublabel and type in Test2. So that is used for further organization. In this case, Test2 is already nested underneath the main label Test1. Now can you create another sublabel? Of course you can. Add sublabel, type in Test3. So it's a label beneath a sublabel. So we have different sublabels here, but the main label is still Test1. Again, used for further organization. Look at what I've done. Under Operations, I have ANGSA University, further categorized into content or training. Consider Operations. Operations, I have ANGSA University, further categorized into content or training. Consider Operations, the coaching programs, and community management. So pretty useful when you want things to be more organized. Now let's move on to the creation of filters. Again, hit Mail Settings, go to Filters. Now you will see all the filters that I've created already, and at the bottom you have the option to create a new filter. So for the walkthrough, let's create a new one. Now you'll see different options here. You can filter the sender of the email, the recipient, the subject, which contains these words or doesn't have these words. So it is your call. You set your parameters because you manage your own email. Now for the walkthrough, I'm just going to filter messages coming from Joy Soriano, who is part of the HR team. So I'm going to hit Create Filter with a search. Then you'll also find the advanced option whether it should skip the inbox or not. So it's your decision whether to enable this option. If it's very important, you don't want to automatically archive it, then don't check this box. Okay? Now, that's the purpose of the filter, for that message to have a label automatically. So choose that label. For Joyce, I'm going to select this label that I created, 3 Team, HR, and Admin. And then I'll just hit Create Filter. You also have the option to apply that particular filter to all the matching conversations. So again, it's your decision. Hit Create Filter, then it's done. From now on, whenever I receive an email from Joyce Ariano, that will be automatically labeled as Team, HR, and Admin. It's found right here. But that will still be seen in my inbox because I did not check skip the inbox. Okay, so that's clear for filters. So every time Fabrice receives an email, he will decide on the next action, whether it should be answered instantly or file it in the 3-action list or reference. At any rate, at the end of the day, Fabrice's inbox always stays empty, so you should do the same. Based on the labels, Fabrice will know the course of action he will take. Messages with the Action 1 label are checked every day to ensure completion and prompt action. Messages with Action 2 label are also checked every day but managed at least once a week. Eventually, they will be relabeled with Action 1. Try to follow these recommended times to manage your email. You don't want to be stuck the whole day staring at your inbox and waiting for incoming emails, do you? The email management system by Google gives the user more flexibility. Even though Fabrice had already set the filters for our community of authors, where the messages from these senders are automatically filed in a particular label, you will still see the same message in his inbox for further follow-up. Like what we have mentioned earlier, one email message may have multiple labels depending on your judgment. However, there are cases that emails can already skip his inbox. Here's one example. One agency named Seva Prod sends Fabrice 5 to 10 emails a day. Since he already has a team that manages this agency, messages from Seva Prod no longer have to pass in his inbox by adjusting the filter settings to skip the inbox. He will not check this label every day because he can simply check updates with his team that monitors their messages on a daily basis. Here's a sample of an archive of the messages sent by one of our coaches, Jean-Michel Garay. All conversations that Fabrice has had with this author are archived in this folder. Let's take a look at where email management falls in an employee's daily routine. You will notice that it is done 3 times a day, once in the morning, at noon, and before the end of the day. Say goodbye to an inbox cluttered with unread messages where you don't even know where to begin. Remember that your inbox should always stay empty. It shows that you are in total control of your business communication. But your Action 1 label, which requires your action within the week, is always full. While it is very easy to use the basic functions of our corporate email, this should still be carefully managed. Its advanced features should be utilized properly to foster efficiency and communication. Not only will it save us a lot of time by attending to the most important emails first, but it will also maintain the happiness of our communities through our immediate action as a result of email management. Alright, I'm going to show you one more important thing when you're using Gmail. When you will be out of the office for a long time, let's say you will be on vacation for a week, make sure that you set your vacation responder, something which I did this past Christmas. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what I did. It lasted for a week, from December 23 to December 30, and then my subject was on vacation, and then I also wrote a message here. Simply put, the purpose of the vacation responder is to let the people know that you're on vacation, and then you will automatically send them a response telling them so they won't feel bad that you're not replying to them or something. Okay, make sure that you set this if you'll be away for a long time. If you'll be out for a day, then it doesn't matter. No need to set this, okay? It's best to use this if you'll be out for a long period of time. Okay, then when you're done, hit Save Changes. It's grayed out because I haven't made any changes yet, but when you do, this will be enabled, okay? Now I'm going to show you other cool features of Gmail. So let's go to the Labs tab of the Settings page. Now when you go to labs, you will find experimental features of Gmail. So something that they're still experimenting on, but they're already functional. So you may want to try those that are pretty useful for us. In my case, I have enabled default text styling because I want to format my texts and use my favorite font. And I also enabled message translation. Could come in handy if you receive a lot of messages in French, then you can translate them in English using Google Translate. Okay. Also, I want you to enable this one. Well, it's just a suggestion, but you may want to do it. Enable undo send. So when you enable undo send, you have the option to undo it if it has already been sent, and you only have 5 seconds to do it. So you gotta be very fast. This concludes our training on email management. Stand by for the debriefing session on this topic. Au revoir.